Welcome back. It's just under an hour's time before Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene will deliver his first budget speech. Nene, never before has a midterm financial plan been so anxiously anticipated. The minister hardly has any room to maneuver. Revenues are decreasing and costs are escalating. So, to find out more, we cross to Devon at Parliament.
All right, thanks very much indeed. Gunther from the Parliament buildings here in Cape Town. Of course, the maiden budget speech, as you mentioned, of Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. Not this time around, Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene. It's his maiden speech. He takes over from Pravin Gordhan. And indeed, this budget policy statement involves outlining adjustments to the budget speech made in February, and some very important numbers here. The numbers announced today will give us a clear indication of the confidence level South Africans and investors have in government's management of its finances. Let's just take a look at some of the important numbers we expect to be revised this afternoon. The Minister will give us revisions of the country's fiscal deficit, which is a measure of revenue collected compared to the expenditure. We know that the budget deficit is expected to hover around 4.5%. We also will see revisions on inflation and that all-important economic growth number. Remember, South Africa barely missed a recession sometime this year. We had a negative 0.6% growth in the first quarter. It then moved on to fractionally into positive territory, 0.6%. So much anticipated to see what that number turns out today in terms of its revision. Also, a revision on South Africa's debt, a very important number, and information on potential tax changes. So we know that actual tax decisions are not announced at the medium-term budget, but it certainly does give us hints as to what will happen in February. And of course, very much anticipated as well, the funding around state utilities, Eskom, and South African Airways. We will get more information on that. That's expected in the midterm budget address when the Finance Minister Nhlanhla Nene does take the podium in about 45 minutes from now when he delivers that medium-term budget. Now, we are going to chat to someone from Citadel. It's Dave Moore. He's an investment strategist at Citadel. He joins us. Dave, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Right, plenty to talk about.
Thing, I'm not with Citadel anymore. I'm now with Old Mutual.
Old Mutual. Dave Moore, investment strategist at Old Mutual. Thanks indeed for correcting. There's plenty to talk about this afternoon, I mean, in terms of content of the minister's speech. But firstly, let's look at the environment that the new minister finds himself in. We look at Trevor Manuel, for example. I mean, Trevor Manuel, when he warned of tough times, commodity prices were different, the rand was stronger, there was rising investment. Pravin Gordhan, okay, obviously there was an international crisis financially at that time, but both of these ministers arguably had much more leeway, didn't they? Let's just talk about the environment that Nhlanhla Nene finds himself in.
Well, I think there are two problems that he faces. The one is that he's inherited a budget deficit, as you said, of the size of about 4.5% of GDP or national income. That 5 years ago, that would have been an acceptable size for a budget deficit against the background of the world financial crisis. However, today, with a lot of countries having closed their budget deficits, and certainly in the emerging markets as well, we find that South Africa's budget deficit stands out as one of the bigger ones. We've seen the rating agencies putting a lot of emphasis on the need to actually cut the deficit. So that's his one challenge that he's got. His other challenge is he's got to do it against the slowing economy. You know, one where the growth rate is likely to be revised down from about 2.7% to around about 1.5%. And then interesting to see what the minister will be factoring in for the growth for next year. Because this, if you think of this fiscal year, we're pretty much halfway, through it. Most of the decisions have been made, and there must be an indication of what he's likely to do next year. And I think, those two things make it very, very tough.
He is very much qualified, though, isn't he? Theoretically, he's qualified. He's got the practical experience. He was chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Finance and as Deputy Minister of Finance since 2008. So he's well qualified to stand up there on that podium and command the authority.
No, absolutely. I don't think he's not being parachuted in to try and solve this problem. He has experienced government finances firsthand, as you said, for many years. So I've got no doubt that the minister's got the background and the know-how, certainly surrounding him in his department as well, to tackle this.
Yeah.
But of course it's not just a technical financial situation. It also implies that there must be a political angle to this as well. So one would have to see to what extent the minister can, force through the difficult decisions on the political front as well.
And that's important because clout and persuasiveness to make those decisions and relay them to government and to other stakeholders. We are still learning about him on that front, are we not?
Yes, I think he was pretty much in the background most of the time under the previous minister. Since then, one has seen, he's come out with quite a few interviews. There was an important interview on Bloomberg's television the other day where I think already he hinted at, what lies ahead, tough times. He hinted at probably reprioritizing and pushing out some spending goals for government. And also left a hint that there might be some tax increases. Probably not in this mini budget, but probably something in the early part of next year when he delivers his first main budget.
We're going to talk about tax quite extensively later on. Before we end this session, the minister and his style and his tone this afternoon, that will be as important as the substance of his speech, wouldn't it? Because we'll get a sense of the posture that Nhlanhla Nene will assume in this position as finance minister, and that will happen today, will it not?
No, absolutely. I think a lot of analysts will look at him in that way. For me as an economist, I'm more sort of a numbers person, so I think the numbers are important as well. But I think the way he delivers it demonstrates his expertise in handling those difficult subjects. That is important.
All right, Dave Moore, investment strategist at Old Mutual. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Stay here. We will have more thoughts on this midterm budget when we come back. It's back to Johannesburg.